The desert sun burned like fire over the Arizona plains. The year was 1872, and the land stretched endless and untamed, a place where justice came from. The barrel of a gun and the heart of a man was tested by dust and danger. Joshua McCain rode through that wilderness, a lone cowboy with a scarred past and a restless soul. His horse, Dustwalker, snorted under the weight of the heat, hooves sinking in the dry sand as vultures circled high above. Joshua wasn't running from anyone, not anymore. He was running from himself. From the ghosts that still whispered every night, when the wind howled across the mesas. He'd been a soldier once, part of the U.S. cavalry, until the war took everything that mattered. His friends, his honor, his sense of right and wrong. Now he wandered between border towns, taking odd jobs, hunting strays, fixing fences, or sometimes chasing bandits when the sheriff's men were too scared to ride out. But he never stayed long anywhere. Trouble had a way of finding him even in silence. That day, Joshua stopped by a narrow canyon where a small creek cut through the rock, a rare thing in that desert. He dismounted, removed his hat, and knelt to drink. The cool water touched his lips like mercy itself. The sound of running water and the rustling of leaves almost made him forget where he was, until he heard a splash. He froze. Someone else was there. Through the thicket of mesquite bushes, he saw her, a young woman, bare-shouldered and waist-deep in the creek, washing herself under the falling stream. Her long black hair glistened under the sun like dark silk. She was native, Apache, by her beads and copper bracelets, and she was beautiful, fierce like the spirit of the desert itself. Joshua turned away instantly, heart pounding. He hadn't meant to look. Easy now, he whispered to himself. You ain't seen nothing. You walk away. But before he could move, a branch cracked under his boot. The girl turned. Her eyes met his, wild, furious, and terrified all at once. She screamed something in Apache, then grabbed a knife from a nearby rock and stepped out of the water, her body glistening under the sun, her voice shaking with anger and shame. You've seen me undressed, she cried, her English thick but clear. You must marry me, or they'll punish us both. Joshua stood frozen, his mind spinning. I didn't mean to, he began, but she raised the knife. Don't move, white man. My tribe will kill you if they find you here. You dishonored me. You saw what no man should see. He lifted his hand slowly. Listen, miss, I ain't here to cause trouble. I was just... Silence, she snapped, eyes blazing like a storm. You think you can see an Apache girl bathing and ride away alive? They'll skin you alive for that. Joshua looked around him. The land was quiet, but the air was heavy with danger. He could almost feel the eyes of hidden warriors among the cliffs. Then what do you want me to do? He asked. She stepped closer, trembling but defiant. You must take me, marry me. Make it right before the spirits curse us both. He blinked, stunned. Marry you? I don't even know your name. My name is Naya, she said, voice softening for the first time. Daughter of Chief 10 Bears. My father will not forgive this shame. But if I go with you, if I say you took me as your wife, and maybe I can live, maybe you can too. Joshua stared at her, the truth sinking in. If her tribe caught him here, they'd hang him from a tree before sundown. The only way out might be the very thing she demanded. He nodded slowly. All right, Naya, we'll go. But you're sure this is what you want? She looked at him, her eyes shimmering with something between pride and fear. It doesn't matter what I want. It's the only way to survive. They moved quickly. Joshua fetched his horse, while Naya wrapped herself in a blanket and gathered a small bundle of belongings. The desert wind grew stronger, carrying the cries of hawks above the cliffs. He helped her onto Dustwalker's back, then swung up behind her. Hold on, he said. She did, and as the horse galloped through the canyon, her arms wrapped tight around his waist, Joshua realized he'd just crossed a line he could never uncross. By nightfall, they reached a ridge overlooking the valley. Below them, the campfires of the Apache flickered like stars on the earth. Joshua knew those lights meant death if they were caught. He built a small fire in a hollow near some rocks hidden from view. Naya sat across from him, watching the flames dance. You shouldn't have come near our lands, she said quietly. No white man leaves alive. I wasn't looking for trouble, Joshua said. Just water. She tilted her head. And now you have a wife. He gave a dry chuckle. You got a sharp tongue for someone who forced a man into marriage. Her lips twitched, the faintest ghost of a smile. And you talk too much for someone who should be thanking me for saving his life. The fire crackled between them. In that fragile light she looked both wild and graceful, her hair loose, her eyes deep as midnight. Joshua found himself unable to look away. "Tell me something," he said softly. "If your people find us, what will they do?" She stared into the fire. "If they find me, they'll take me back, and they'll kill you for what you saw." Joshua's jaw tightened. "Then I guess we'd better make sure they don't." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the desert breathe, the distant howl of a coyote, the whisper of wind through dry grass. Finally, Naya spoke again. "Why did you leave your people, Joshua McCain?" He looked up sharply. "How do you know my name?" "I heard it in the soldiers' camps long ago," she said. "They called you Ghost Rider, the man who doesn't die." He sighed. "I wish that were true. Maybe I'm just too stubborn to quit." "You carry pain," she said softly. "I see it in your eyes." He poked the fire with a stick, his voice low. "Maybe, but pain's what keeps a man moving. Stop feeling it, you stop being alive." For the first time, Naya's gaze softened. "You speak like someone who's lost much." "Everything," he said simply. That night Joshua couldn't sleep. He watched her as she slept near the fire, her blanket drawn tight, the glow tracing her features, strong, proud, innocent in a way that made his chest ache. She was a woman caught between two worlds, just like him, and whether fate or accident had brought them together. He knew one thing: the desert didn't forgive easily. At dawn they packed their things and rode west. But before they could reach the ridge, a sound split the air, the haunting cry of an Apache war horn. Naya's face turned pale. "They've found us." From the cliffs riders appeared, warriors with painted faces and raised spears, their horses charging like thunder. Joshua pulled his rifle from the saddle and fired a warning shot into the sky. "Hold on!" he shouted, spurring Dustwalker forward. Arrows whistled past them. One struck the saddle, another grazed his arm. Naya screamed as they raced through the canyon, dust flying behind them. Joshua's blood pounded in his ears. He could feel the heat of the chase closing in. Warriors on all sides, shouting in their native tongue. Then, in a desperate move, he turned Dustwalker toward the river below. They plunged off the ridge, splashing into the shallow water just as an arrow struck a rock beside his head. They rode through the current, water soaking their clothes, until finally the shouts faded behind them. When they reached the far bank, Joshua pulled the horse to a stop, gasping for breath. Naya clung to him, trembling. "They'll never stop," she whispered. "Not until one of us is dead." Joshua looked into her eyes, the sun breaking through the clouds behind her. "Then we fight together," he said. "Husband and wife." And though he said it to save them both, something deep inside him, something he'd buried long ago, stirred like a spark in the dark. The desert wind rose again, carrying the echo of drums in the distance. The hunt had begun. The morning sun broke over the canyon like fire spilling across the sky. Joshua McCain's arm burned from the wound the arrow had left. But he didn't slow down. Dustwalker's breath came out in hot clouds as they rode through the wastelands, the Apache girl holding tight to him. Behind them, the echo of war cries still lingered. The hunt wasn't over. Naya looked back once, her face pale beneath the morning light. "They'll track us," she whispered. "The desert remembers every footprint." Joshua tightened his jaw. "Then we'll ride where no one can follow." He guided the horse toward the west, into the territory known to few, a land of broken rocks, twisted mesquite, and silence that swallowed all sound. Every mile felt heavier than the last, and when the sun finally sank low again, they reached an old mining shack half buried in the hills. Joshua helped Naya down, his movement slow from exhaustion. "We'll stay here tonight," he said. The shack was half collapsed, but it offered shelter from the wind. Naya built a small fire while Joshua checked his rifle and cleaned the wound on his arm. She watched him quietly. "You're bleeding too much," she said. "Let me help." He hesitated, but she came closer anyway, tearing a strip from her blanket and binding his arm with surprising gentleness. Her hands were warm, her touch careful. "Thank you," he murmured. "For someone who threatened to kill me yesterday, you've got a kind heart," she smiled faintly. "You saw me undressed, I should have killed you. Instead, I'm saving your life. The spirits must be laughing." Joshua chuckled softly, though pain etched his face. "You got spirit, Naya, I'll give you that." She sat back, her eyes glinting in the firelight. "You don't understand what this means, do you?" She said quietly. "In my tribe, if a man sees a woman like that, he's bound to her. Our souls become one. If he leaves her, he carries her curse forever. Joshua's expression softened. You really believe that? I have to, she replied. It's how I was raised. He looked into the fire for a long time. Then I guess I'm cursed already, he said, half smiling. But his eyes, they told another story. Hours passed in uneasy silence. Outside, the desert wind moaned like an old ghost. Joshua couldn't sleep. He stared at the stars through the broken roof, thoughts storming in his head. He'd been a soldier, a drifter, a man who'd seen too much death, but never had he met a woman like her, fierce as the sun, pure as the wind. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this wasn't just an accident. Fate had tied him to her in ways he couldn't yet name. When dawn came, the sound of distant hoofbeats shattered the silence. Naya stiffened. They found us. Joshua grabbed his rifle. Stay behind me. But before he could aim, a shot rang out, not an arrow, but a bullet. It whizzed past the shack and hit a beam above his head. Then he heard laughter. Not Apache warriors and white men, bandits, 3 of them, riding toward the shack, their horses kicking up dust. Well, looky here, one of them drawled. A runaway squaw and a half-dead cowboy. Joshua's jaw tightened. Keep talking, friend. And you'll be half-dead, too. The leader, a scarred man named Briggs, smirked. Now, no need for that. We're just out for a bit of company. Hand over the girl and maybe we'll let you crawl away. Naya gripped Joshua's sleeve, fear flashing in her eyes. They'll kill you. They'll try, Joshua said. Then, faster than thought, he raised his rifle and fired. The first bandit fell. The second ducked, drawing his revolver. But Joshua rolled behind the broken wall and fired again. The bullet caught the man in the chest. Briggs cursed and ran for cover. Bullets cracked through the air, splintering wood. Joshua gritted his teeth, blood seeping through his bandage. Naya grabbed his revolver from the saddlebag and, without hesitation, fired toward the shadows. The shot missed, but it scared Briggs enough to make him shout a retreat. You ain't worth the trouble, cowboy, he yelled, spurring his horse away. Within moments, they were gone. The silence that followed felt like the whole desert had stopped breathing. Naya lowered the gun, trembling. Joshua looked at her with a half-smile. Remind me never to make you mad. She laughed in a soft, nervous laugh that echoed beautifully against the rocks. You fight like a warrior, she said. You fight like someone who's lost too much to lose again, he replied. They buried the bodies before noon, said no words, and rode on west. The land grew rougher, the heat more merciless. They spoke little, but every look, every silence between them, grew heavier, as if something unspoken was blooming in that emptiness. That night they camped near a dry riverbed. The stars stretched above like 1,000 candles over the desert. Naya sat close to the fire, humming an old song, a low, haunting melody of her people. Joshua listened, eyes closed. That song, he said softly, what does it mean? It's a song for the lost, she said. A call to the spirits to guide them home. He looked at her, his voice almost a whisper. You think there's a home for people like us? She smiled sadly. Home is not a place. It's who you find. For the first time, Joshua reached out, his rough hand brushing hers. She didn't pull away. Naya, he said quietly, I didn't mean to see you that day, but I'm glad I did. Her eyes lifted to his, soft, shining, uncertain. Why? Because now I know what it means to care again. Before she could speak, a sudden shout echoed through the canyon. Joshua spun, drawing his gun, too late. A group of Apache riders appeared from the darkness, surrounding them in a circle of torches and spears. Naya stood, her face pale. It's my father, she whispered. Chief Ten Bears rode forward, tall, proud, his face carved from years of war. My daughter, he thundered, you dishonor your people. You flee with the enemy. You bring shame to your blood. Naya stepped forward. Father, please, I had no choice. He saw me. Silence. 10 Bears roared. You know the law. For such shame there is only one end, his death. Joshua stood his ground, rifle lowered but ready. I didn't touch her, he said. She told me to help her, to save her life. 10 Bears sneered. A white man's words mean nothing. You will die before the sun rises. Naya ran to him, eyes desperate. No. If you kill him, you kill me too. He's my husband now. The spirits witnessed it. The warriors murmured among themselves. 10 Bears glared at her. You'd betray your blood for this stranger? He's not a stranger, she cried. He's my choice. The chief stared at her, his expression torn between rage and sorrow. Then he turned to Joshua. If what she says is true, and if you truly took her as your